Hello, everyone. This is Haque and Philip from Bangladesh, and I'm here with East West with my friend Philip Shaw. And this month, we're going to talk about vaccine hesitancy. We know many people around the world, even when vaccine is available, didn't want to do it or they refused to do it. And that's what is known as vaccine hesitancy. As of today, many countries have been trying to persuade their citizens to take the vaccine because that is the only way to get out of COVID pandemic right now. And I'm just going to share with some data so that we understand what is the current state of vaccine state around the world. Globally, if you look at the global world, 44% of the population around the world has been given at least one dose. So we have 54% not given yet. 33% has given 2 doses. But if you now see the distribution of vaccines around the world, Bangladesh, for example, where I am from, 15% population, which is about 24 million, has done their first dose. And 10% population, which is about 16 million, has done their both second dose. So that's Bangladesh. I think in terms of the rest of the world, if I look at my neighbor, India, they have done 629 million people, which is about 46%, right? Roughly the average of the world. And they have about 222, 16% of population has done both doses. Canada, where Phil is from, has done about 77% population given vaccine first dose, and 71% of them has taken second dose. So that gives you the state in Canada. China, almost 1 billion population has given the doses. So that's one of the top. US, 213 million population, which is about 65% has done their first dose, and 183 million, which is about 56% has given their second dose. So you can see the state in, but I want to also take you to Africa, which is another continent which is still very hesitant, or at least did not get the vaccine available to them. Kenya, for example, only 2.7 million people has given vaccine. 5% has taken the first dose, and only 886,000 people, not a lot, has 1.7% has got the second dose. And our other neighbor, Malaysia, ASEAN countries, 22.8 million people, 71% has given the first dose, and about 61% or 62% roughly has given the second dose. So that is the state. So globally, roughly 54% people has not taken their dose yet. In some cases, it is not available. But in many cases, they're also hesitant. So let me hear from Philip on this issue. What is the state of vaccine hesitancy, and how do we think and how to deal with it?
Those are very interesting numbers, and Emil. Hello again for this month. I'm Philip Shaw, coming to you from Dresden, Ontario. When we think about the vaccine hesitancy and how it's affected things, it's interesting to listen to Enamel statistics because here in Canada, Enamel quoted 77%. I thought it was 80%, but we're very close. In Canada, we have very high vaccine rates, but we still lost about 27,000 people. And of course, it's uneven across the country.
27%.
27,000 people have died in Canada from COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. And across Canada, it's uneven with regard to the amount of vaccination. So in some rural areas, it can be as low as 40% or less. And what is happening now is that a lot of the ICU beds are being taken by unvaccinated people that have caught COVID. But, there's many reasons for vaccine hesitancy. We could go into a whole bunch of them. I mean, there might be even gender differences with regard to vaccine hesitancy. I know women that are either pregnant or considering getting pregnant here in Canada have told me that, they're somewhat reticent to get the vaccine until they have a baby, or they're just hesitant to get it simply because of that. There's also other reasons, even though we have a high vaccination rates. But a few things I thought were interesting. Right now in Canada, we have increasingly we just had an election, and the policy during the election was if you wanted to get on a train or a plane, you were going to have something called a vaccine passport, which proved you were double vaccinated. And when this happened, we've seen the rate of vaccination go up just in the last few days. And also, too, in France, France was one of the least vaccinated countries earlier this year, but the French brought in their own version of a vaccination passport, which literally coerced people into getting the vaccine. And now France is one of the greater countries that has vaccinations. So, but the other thing I wanted to say about vaccine hesitancy, at least in the West and at least in this part of the world, I'm not sure if it's like this in other parts of the world, but there is somewhat of a political side to it here in North America. In the United States, vaccine hesitancy to a large extent is political and it's polarized. It's not like that in Canada to some extent, and I don't think it's like that any other places, but definitely in the United States, which is one of the largest countries in the world, one of the richest countries in the world. The idea of getting the vaccine has become political, with people on the right side of the political spectrum seem to be against vaccines, and people in the center and the left are for them. And you can see that in the American South, where vaccine rates are much, much less in red states, Republican states, than they are in the blue states in the United States Northeast, such as Massachusetts. So, it's difficult because we know, one of the only ways out with regard to the pandemic, and it is a puzzle, is to get vaccination rates up high, and they're getting up so high in Canada, but we're still having trouble with people getting sick because they're not vaccinated, which are about 20 or 25% of Canadians right now. So it's a very, very difficult issue. And I don't know if you do something what the French did, where they enticed people with monetary enticements and other enticements to get vaccinated. I know. And of course, in the third world, in places like you had mentioned Kenya and Amal, and even your home country of Bangladesh, it's much more difficult. Like, for instance, where is the information coming from? And we just had this discussion the other day that, you take the whole genre of social media, just think of all the disinformation that's coming from that regarding vaccines. And some people, that's their only bit of information that they listen to. And that's certainly affecting vaccine hesitancy as well. So it is a big problem, but hopefully we'll move ahead and get on the other side of this pandemic somehow. But those are only a few reasons why people are vaccine hesitant in some areas of the country around here.
Thank you, Phil. I think by and large, what you have touched upon is true. In our case, it's not political affiliation. It's more of a, and I always find this is a problem of the social media, because social media provides information which I would call unedited information, which means there is no authority, no organization behind it to justify or to test whether this information is valid or not valid. So a lot of information come out, and those information in social media do affect people. And many countries, I've just given information that I know someone in the US the other day was telling us that they received $100 for getting vaccinated. It's in Texas. So it means the governments are enticing people, which you have mentioned. Same thing in Indonesia. In order to increase this, they have given bicycle as a reward of using a lottery. Even in Taiwan, I give you an example. Taiwan has given that if you come and do your vaccination, you will get a free chicken fry. So things like that people have done. In Bangladesh, we have not coerced yet, but social media, government machineries are now ready to do this. And we have what they call mass vaccination campaign, which is probably what the US did at the beginning. Means you don't have to register. We started actually with registration. A lot of people who are not educated, they cannot register. So now they have said mass center, you can just walk in and do your vaccination. And that has promoted the rate. So what you see today is about 15% one dose. A few months ago, it was only 2% to 4%. So you can see the significant rise has happened because of the mass vaccination. And there's also a hype. Some people, everyone, government says no services available. Probably they're hunching it. That's also on social media. That if you are not vaccinated, you will not get into the jobs, into the offices. That's something that people have thought about it. For example, my university, we're not allowing, probably not going to allow students to come in without a vaccination. So that kind of a strategy do work. And now we have seen government stars, what they call media stars, coming on the TV and newspapers coming and telling people to vaccinate. I think that is one of the solutions that even in China, I tell you, even in China, they had given rewards for vaccination. So to me, when I see this, there is always vaccine hesitancy was always there. And particularly during the COVID, because the information is so scanty, as misinformation is available, particularly because of US. I think that's where they missed a lot of information coming from. And once you get this information, people think this, if US people are doing it, it will be correct. So in a way, they have also fueled some of this hesitancy. But at the moment, I think biggest problem in the third world countries like Bangladesh and many is the availability of vaccines. The biggest challenge is the availability of vaccine. As you know, that we had booked our vaccine doses from India, but India stopped giving it. Their only planning is next month they will start exporting it when they have already 71%. And neighboring countries, they have not done well. I know Nepal has also not done well because of their not availability. So yes, I believe you will find still about 25 to 35% population probably still hesitant. But eventually, I hope people will get into the vaccination because probably that is one of the best solutions. However, I know people who are vaccinated, double dose vaccinated, also got COVID. So what it basically means that we should not worry, we should not think about that we can get out of the mask. So mask, that might still be there for some time. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, yes. That's right. We call those breakthrough infections here when somebody gets COVID and they've had a double vaccination. And but of course, the statistics say about 20% of new infections here are breakthrough infections that have got through. But still, even then, generally you don't go into hospitalization ICU. You're usually much better off. I would think at some point, and I doubt if this will ever happen because I know Facebook's very big in Bangladesh and other places, but you would think the social media companies would have a responsibility with regard to vaccine hesitancy to help get through this, but I'm not sure if they do or not. Certainly doesn't think so now.
No, I think that is the biggest challenge. And I think social media, they have censored Trump, if you remember. Twitter has censored Trump. So if you can censor certain people because of their political slogans or political voices, I think on vaccine issues, social media may also take some social step, responsible social step. In other words, they should look into this. I think the biggest challenge is that these are all in local languages. So it's not in one language. So tracing them in the media is not going to be easy. But that is one of the biggest challenge or biggest menace of modern world with the social media, because there are a lot of information, good thing about social media, things that used to be never published. Now it comes into social media and get attention, and things that should not be published also comes into media and creates a problem. So I think that's where the issue is. Overall, I must say that Bangladesh has been quite good in terms of vaccination of the younger child. So children get at least 5 to 6 doses of different vaccination, polio and everything. We have done zero polio. So overall in the society, acceptance of vaccine was very good. But in this case with COVID, somehow there are people who are still hesitant. The other reason for hesitancy, I'm not sure whether it is related to availability or because of hesitancy. Maybe because the way they arrange vaccination, because there are people who are older people, there are people who are sick, who cannot go into the mass vaccination center and wait in queue for hours to get the vaccination. So I think it is time for governments who has available vaccine to think about giving it privately to certain people who are sick, to certain people who cannot attend mass vaccination centers. It is not like United States that you can take your car and get the shot. But it's not like that in Bangladesh. You have to walk into a place. Often the places are not accessible for physically challenged people. So I think for those issues should be also addressed in order to increase the vaccination.
Yeah. And that's something that in Canada, for instance, the long-term care homes were vaccinated first. But I can understand in a lot of the world that'd be a very, very big issue. But as we finish off, I do think it's important that government, takes the proper stance with this. In Canada, we just went through an election campaign where the Prime Minister was emphasizing this about vaccination, while the opposition party wasn't as much, and they lost to a large extent, as well as other countries like France is the other that I mentioned. That I think it's important for government to have a role in this and to attack vaccine hesitancy, so we can help get to the other side of this terrible pandemic.
Yes, I think you are right. That is a most important part. Otherwise, we will not get to the normal life. We have been out of the normal life for the last 2 years.
That's right.
Last time I've seen you when you were in Bangladesh, and COVID came right after that.
That's
so
right.
We are still at home and caught into this pandemic. So I think everyone should get vaccinated, and the government has I agree with you, has a large role to play. And I think social media needs to also be careful before publishing this information. There's a lot of misinformation, and it's creating some of this. So with that, I think we will end our episode today. This is East West again for the month of September. Thank you.
Thank you very much.